did my undergraduation in engineering from BITS Pilani, and I graduated in 2008. And I bring this up because I graduated in the very month that Lehman Brothers crashed. And we saw the meltdown of the global financial meltdown happening. So I was witnessing it in front of my eyes. And we were, so I studied in the Dubai campus, and Dubai is so interconnected uh, to the globe that you could see an immediate impact, right? And the reason I bring this up is because a lot of y'all are probably worried about how things are going to shape up for the next 6 months to maybe 12 months to maybe 2 years. A lot of y'all might be worried, but be rest assured that y'all are probably in a country which is in the strongest position to bounce back from a pandemic right now globally. I think India is probably the best poised to take advantage of the situation, and there are some good consumer insights and learnings that are going to come out of this also, right? It's a very critical time where businesses are shifting the way they operate. So you all will be entering the workforce at a time when a lot of businesses are pivoting their business models, which I feel is a great advantage, because y'all sort of will be geared up for a more digitally enabled era. Um, so please be rest assured about things are going to shape up well. It's a temporary period of lull. I just wanted to sort of put that in. Coming back to my career, I think post engineering, like most engineers across the world who get abused, I didn't want to continue in the typical field of engineering. I loved the two subjects of marketing that I got an opportunity to study during engineering, and I was obviously very keen to pursue a career in that. And I was very keen to sort of come back to India because India was the next big thing, right? So came back to India, got an internship with a publicist agency called Saatchi and Saatchi. Now my role was that of an account planner or a brand strategy planner. And the internship soon fortunately turned out to be a full-time role where I learned a lot, and I built the fundamentals of consumerism in this job, right? So a very interesting example, that a very interesting brand that I worked on during this time was actually Mahindra Logan. Sorry to interrupt y'all a bit. I think something that I forgot to tell y'all is what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably talk for about 20-25 minutes at the most. I don't want this to be a monologue beyond a point. So after that, we'll sort of try to make it interactive where you guys, please feel free to ask me whatever question y'all have, whether it's related to marketing, whether it's related to placements, anything at all, right? I'm happy to answer them. So coming back to Saatchi and Saatchi, one of the brands that I led in terms of the brand communication strategy was Mahindra Logan. I'm not sure how many of y'all know about it, but Logan was a car introduced by Renault and entered the country with a tie-up with Mahindra. Right now, my role as a brand strategy planner was to deep dive into what the consumer thinks, create a lot of competition benchmarking, study the industry, study the category, uh, build a very comprehensive consumer persona, if I could put it that way. And that information was then used by the creative teams to create, excellent ads or great communication. So when I took over the brand, the company or the brand had already sort of put out a few TV adverts. One of the things that they claimed that the car was industry leading in was the boot space, as well as the number of people it could seat. The leg room was class leading, and it started off reasonably well. Obviously, you had competition in the form of Honda City back then, which was a fantastic product. But Logan did fairly well in the initial few days, but they weren't able to crack the market per se. And this is much before they became a Meru. Just to make it clear, I was staunchly against that, the Meru deal, but they still went ahead and did it. So one of the things that we realized is, we saw their ad over and over and over again, right? Something that they pointed out in their ad was that Logan was a wide body car. That's the very words that they used in their communication, right? And that's where they went wrong. The reason I'm talking about this is we sort of had to go through a lot of consumers, show them the ad over and over again to understand where is it that they're not able to make an impact through their communication strategy. And what we realized is the campaign was full of abstractness, right? They used terminologies which sounded probably great in a business meeting, but does not go down very well with the consumers, right? So there started a journey to deep dive into, talking to a lot of consumers, doing heavy amount of consumer research, focus group discussions, and we came to the conclusion that we need to highlight the same set of features, which is, maybe fuel economy, space, a spacious car, a good amount of boot space. But we need to do this in a very, very concrete method, maybe preferably visually over just sort of saying it, right? And we started crafting communication. So one of the first ads that we created was actually this ad of a young boy, going out of India to study. And he's packed his bags, and he's sort of going to the airport, and his abnormally large family sort of wants to obviously go and see him off, right? So they all stuff themselves into the car, and this guy has truckloads of luggage, including the tons and tons of boxes of food that his mother has given him, and all of that fits very smoothly. And we showed that entire episode in a slightly funny, slightly emotional manner. And it ended with saying something on the lines of India mein jaane wala ek or chhodne wale anek. Right now, it was it was a quintessential way of using a very typical Indian insight and highlighting a product feature, so that the consumer is able to retain this, right? And we similarly launched a bunch of other ads to highlight different features, which was, we showed how good the fuel economy was when a man and his wife are shopping, and the wife is on a sari shopping free spree, for example, right? And she takes him from shop to shop to shop to shop, and that's how you highlighted that's how we highlighted the entire dimension of fuel economy, right? So the reason I'm talking to you all about this is, one of the things that we did over here is, um, we deep dived into what the consumer really took out of a campaign. Too often, as marketers, what tends to happen is, we sit on our laptops and within our office environments, and we make a lot of assumptions. The biggest pitfall for marketers today is making assumptions and not validating it with the consumers. And I'll continue to give you some more interesting examples, right? So if I cut across directly to my current role at Celio, obviously in between I've transitioned through a bunch of roles, which is work at Midday, which is a publication house, work at Jack and Jones. I was handling marketing for the retail brand Jack and Jones. Did a bunch of interesting campaigns. We worked on the Ranveer Singh campaign, and cut to Celio. Right now, to give you all some background about Celio, it's a French menswear brand. This is for those of y'all who don't know a lot about it. They're the single menswear retailer back in France with close to about an 18% market share. They had entered the country in 2008, which finishes about 11 years in the country now. And again, very interesting problem, right? Now, it's a European brand. And for those of y'all who are aware of, or had experience working with European brands, a majority of them come with the mindset that if the product is good, the product will sell by itself. You don't really need to market it. Right now, this philosophy probably works well in the European markets, but India, as we say, "Jo dikhta hai, wo bikta hai." It's basically a very marketing oriented country. Today, if you need to, if you're there in the mind of the consumers, you will do well. If you're not, maybe may not be. So just by the attribute of a product being good doesn't mean it's going to be successful. So there was a lot of internal change required, right, within the management working towards. So before external marketing started, a lot of work was done to internally market and internally align the founders, the global CEO, to make them understand what India is all about. Right. So let me give you an interesting insight. Now, I mentioned the size of the brand in France because it's the single largest menswear retailer brand, and because of this, what's happened is they are a very democratized brand back in France. When I say that, I mean you have an 18-year-old man shopping in the Champs-Élysées stores in Paris, and you have a 60-year-old man shopping. And I'm not giving you all random facts, but this is the first time I went to the Paris Champs-Élysées store, and I stood in a Cello store, and I just stood there for 3 to 4 hours just observing the kind of people who come and shop, right? And this is the widest demographic that I saw in my experience in fashion. This happens because a brand is at a very different life cycle stage over there vis-a-vis in India. Now, India, when it comes to, so how did we solve this problem, right? The brand was not really doing well in the Indian markets. To give you all some context, Jack and Jones and Celio launched in the same year, in 2008, and the difference in top line is close to about 2.5 times, at least that time. Now that gap is being reduced. So how did we really solve this problem? First of all, we deep dived into who our consumer is, right? So what came out very strongly is our consumers are people primarily at that point in time. The people are buying TG were people who were about 30 years of age. So about 32, 33 was the average age of our customer who was buying into the brand at that given point in time. If you slap India's demographic data on top of this, right, about more than 50% of our audience today in India is below the age of 27. That actually makes us the youngest population in the world. So there lies the first problem. If you're not appealing to a younger TG, you are only going to be a brand with a limited shelf life, right? Because the other challenge with people about 32, 33 is they have a lot of disposable income, which makes their choices way broader. So this is the first problem that we had to solve. The second problem that we had to solve was India as a market is culturally very different from a European market, right? Now, in Europe, if I had to give you an example, men have always been very stylishly, not men for that matter, I mean people in general, are very, very stylishly dressed, right? They have a fantastic sense of fashion. It's an understated sense of fashion, but they have a fantastic sense of fashion. So when children ideally look up to their fathers in terms of their sense of fashion, right? It's a bit like, if I had to give you an example, it's a bit like David Beckham's son stealing clothes from his wardrobe. I mean, he wouldn't have an issue where looking like his dad, or getting fame in the same way his dad is being known as a fashion icon. But in India, I think if you see your father shopping from a brand, you're going to run as fast as you can, right, away from that brand. You don't want to shop in, ideally you don't want to shop in the same brand that your father shops in. So culturally, if you actually think about this, there's a bit of a difference. You want your own identity, you want your own sense of brand, and that's where the second problem was identified. The communication architecture, which is the global communication architecture, was very democratized. So if you saw an old Celio ad, you would see maybe 5 men in the ad across different age categories. One guy would be young, one guy would be middle-aged, one guy would be slightly older, all of them wearing CLO. So the idea of the brand was very democratized, and that's what they tried to force fit in India. We realized we had to soon change that, right? So because culturally, when a younger person looks at the ad, they probably think, who is this brand for? Is it for my dad? Is it for me? Is it for someone much younger? I don't relate to the brand. So that's the second problem we had to solve. The third problem was, we entered the country with Future Group, right? And again, the challenge here was, we were confused as an Indian brand, which we are not. We are an international brand. And now the question arises, does it make sense to talk about your heritage and your international brand origins with the consumers? That's again an interesting problem we encountered, right? So let me delve a bit into this problem. What we did is we did extensive research. We tried and asking customers, hey, does it matter? Do you prefer Indian brands over international brands? Right? Our logic always told us that customers will prefer international brands over Indian because there's a natural aspiration. Uh, there's a natural aspiration that gets attached to the brand, right? But every single customer that we asked, do you prefer international brands over Indian brands? Said no. At least a resounding 90% of our consumer research came back saying consumers actually did not prefer an international brand over an Indian brand. And that got us thinking that this goes completely against whatever all of us have learned in being in retail and being in apparel fashions, right? So we started asking the question in a slightly indirect manner. We sort of put across brands which were Indian and global brands, and then we started asking people which brands do you prefer, right? And we did a bunch of other neurological, consumer neuromarketing exercises to try to ask the same question in a very, very indirect manner. Very different results. We actually came to the conclusion that people do prefer international brands over Indian brands when they clearly know about the heritage. An example being a brand like Levi's. Now, what happened between the two research, right? When we deep dived more into this, we realized when you ask a consumer a question like, hey, do you prefer an international brand over an Indian brand, they are always going to say no, because you're in a certain sense attacking the sense of nationalism, right? And that's the error that we made in the research, in the initial research methodology. Now, this is very interesting because this tells us that research, pure play, there are various angles to conduct research in, right? And even when you get research data, you always need to take it with a pinch of salt and need to continue validating it. The reason I'm telling you all is a lot of y'all, when you start your career, a lot of y'all will be doing a lot of market research, a lot of understanding of what the consumer behavior is. Validate these insights. It's very important that you all do this because sometimes researchers can be very, very biased. So you need to remove the bias out of research completely. So, this is again very interesting. Now, coming back to the earlier problems, making the brand younger and changing the communication architecture to sort of appeal to that target audience, right? So the few things that we started doing is we started taking younger models. We continued the same architecture. We recreated a new architecture. And we said, let's go younger in terms of models. We launched again a research to understand what kind of models appeal to people. Is it the typical muscular guy? So we did a lot of profiling to understand what kind of approach works with the consumers. We also started going much younger with our design capabilities, with our product launch strategy, with our media mix. When I say media mix, I mean we went digital heavy. We used channels which we felt the younger audience is more attuned to. So we changed the entire approach. Now this sounds very easy, but trust me, it wasn't, because it's basically re-engineering the way the entire organization works, right? That's one of the things that we did. What we also did is we realized, how do we make marketing a little bit more measurable, right? Because to build a brand takes 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and tons and tons of money, right? So we had to be smarter because we immediate ROI. Sorry, did anybody say something?
No, I guess somebody might have accidentally unmuted
Okay, sure.
themselves.
So we needed ROI, right? So we built a very strong product rooted brand architecture. When I mean by product rooted brand architecture, I meant, at any given point in time, we identified categories that we were strong in and we wanted to advertise. So, for example, linen, denim, um, you could have jackets, you could have shirts. So you identify and advertise a particular given category at any given point in time. And I will tell you later why I'm talking about all of this. But what we saw is we saw significant lift in every single category that we advertised, to the tune of 70% to 120% year-on-year category growths in every single category that we identified. So I hear a lot of marketers telling me that you cannot measure a print ad. There is no way of calculating ROI on a print ad. Please don't let anybody tell you that, because that's not true. If you build a very solid and sound marketing strategy, most of it will be attributable, most of it will be measurable. So be smart. Yes, if I had just shown Celio brand everywhere, there was no way of me getting to know whether whether what I'm doing is working or not. But the minute we put out categories and we measured sales results, we immediately knew how successful our campaigns were, right? So the learning over here is, be very, very, the marketing ecosystem is changing very, very quickly, right? Gone are the days when marketing was just an art. It's not anymore. Marketing is as much as much numbers, as much analytics, as much it's an art. Yes, obviously you need fresh creativity, you need a lot of creative breakthrough, clutter breaking work with on the creative standpoint. But when fused, or when mixed with analytics and sharp marketing ideas, they work even better and they become measurable, right? So we tried to solve all these problems by creating a completely new communication architecture. We went sharper in terms of product categories. 3 years later, today, if I have to give you a comparison, our average age of consumers has come down to about 26, 27. So from a 30, we've almost reduced the average age of the consumer by 5 years, which is a significant journey for the brand to take in a span of 3 years, right? We've also improved the stickiness of the brand. I already spoke about the category of the brand. The top of mind recall for the brand has increased by close to 70%, right? Now, the reason I'm also talking about these things is to highlight how things work in real life. What are some of the real life challenges? I think one of the things that Himanshu, in our earlier conversation, you all highlighted to me is, what are some of the tools that we use in marketing, right, on a day-to-day basis? Because you tend to learn a lot in college, right? A lot of theoretical, lot of theory, a lot of frameworks, um, which is fantastic, guys. A lot of it is relevant in the real world. The challenge is, to be very frank and open with you all, not a lot of people know how to apply them in the real world, right? So you have theory as point, practical life as point B. Not everyone knows how to probably apply statistics to predict how much sales that you're generating going further. If you all know how to use it, please make use of it in real life. But some of the more common used technology, or rather analytics principles, are For example, we use a lot of, you all would have studied this, I'm guessing, customer lifetime value. Have you guys studied it?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a beautiful metric, guys. Almost every one of you all in the sales and the marketing function across industry should be looking at this metric. The company that you go to is not looking at this metric. This is an area that you guys can work on. So it's sort of like calculating the net present value, right, of your consumer and predicting. With this, you're able to build some amount of predictive capability to say if A, B, C are consumers today, and this is their customer lifetime value, who should be the customer that I should be really focusing on to be able to maximize the profit that I generate and also maximize the lifetime value. What it also lets you do is it allows you to personalize. You've heard this a lot. Personalization is the way forward, right? So now let me tell you a bit about the CRM program that we run. We have a customer loyalty program on which we do a lot of analytics. We do, as I said, customer lifetime management. We do a lot of predictive analysis to identify if if I, as a customer today, have bought a pair of denims, what is the most likely category that I'm going to buy into tomorrow? So it could be a shirt, right? Basis this information, imagine there are probably 10 lakh people in your base. So you identify a pattern by building different models. Again, the trick here is that you don't necessarily have to physically do this, but you need to have enough knowledge um, to understand this so that you can get the right set of people to do it, right? So there are agencies to do it. So it's not like I sit on a laptop and I build models. We get people to do it either within the company ecosystem or outside the company ecosystem. So you guys need to understand how to derive insights, and how to get people, what are the tools that you need to and the levers that you need to pull to get these consumer insights, right? So we use these data points to build cross-sell, upsell models, right? So today, as an objective for a company is, how do I increase my denim sales? For example, that's an objective given, say, by the CEO of the company, saying, I want to increase my denim sales, right? What's the first thing that you do? Obviously, you do the normal routine that you do, but you have access to a rich source of data, right? You identify every single denim buyer, and you expose him to this communication saying buy denims, etc. But you also potentially have people who could upsell into a denim. They're probably t-shirt buyers today, or they're probably shirt buyers today, but how do you get them to eventually buy a denim? Right? So these are called cross-sell, upsell models. This is something that we use very, very successfully in real life, and it's given fantastic results. So I think another area which all of you all need to sort of focus on and look at is the CRM piece. We also track metrics like new to repeat, active rate, retention rate. What do these essentially mean? New to repeat is basically people who you've just acquired, and what is the time frame within which they repeat? They buy the second product from you, or they buy a second service from you, right? Retention is basically people you've acquired in the past and you've managed to hold on to them and they've not moved out of the system, right? So there are different metrics that you can track basis the different industries and the businesses. I'm talking to you all about some of the more common metrics that exist in the system. Um, this has been a great learning opportunity for me, and it's also been an opportunity to use some of the things that I had learned back in my management and my MBA days to apply in real life. So guys, a lot of what you all study is actually quite relevant in the real world. The frameworks that you study, I'm not referring to things like Porter's forces, 5 forces and SWOT analysis. Those are more of internal company presentations, etc. You beautify your presentations using those frameworks, but do leverage some of the consumer facing metrics. There are obviously some frameworks that are very, very useful in real life as well. There's one that I've used very, very successfully over the years, and I want to quickly take you all through that. It's a very, very simple framework. And then I'm going to open this up so that we can sort of interact and you all can ask questions, etc. Um, now, this framework essentially talks about I'm gonna, so guys, don't bother making notes. I'm actually, this is a blog that I'm also writing, and I'm going to put it up on LinkedIn, so it will be available in a written format. So in case y'all are bothered about making notes, y'all don't need to, right? So something that I've always thought in my career is, why do some ideas survive and others die, right? Why do some products succeed? Why some don't, right? And over the years, from a practicality standpoint, I've looked at or tested various models and frameworks saying what works in the real world, what does not work. Something interesting that I came across from a book called Made to Stick. It's by authors called Chip Heath and Dan Heath. I'm not sure how many of you all have read it. And this also includes some of the notes from Professor Jonah. He is actually the marketing professor at the Wharton School. And he's also written a book called Contagious: Why Things Catch On. So these are two books that you all should probably read about to understand a little bit more detail about this framework. So essentially, it's a framework to say, how do I uh, when I'm creating content, right? What are some of the things that I need to keep in mind from a hygiene perspective? It's called Success. The framework is called Success. If you all have read his book, or you all have done Professor Jonah's courses, you all probably already know about the framework, but I'm going to quickly take you through that. So success actually stands for simple, unexpected, concrete, credible emotional stories, right? Now, the first part of the framework, right? Simple. The idea over here is, whenever you think of a campaign or a creative piece of communication, instead of loading the consumer with a lot of data and details, try to simplify it for the consumer as much as possible. As marketers, keep telling yourself your role is, whenever you talk to consumers, we should be making their lives simpler and not more complex. Let me give you an example over here. I'm not sure how many of you all have seen the Apple MacBook Air campaign. The first time Apple launched the MacBook Air campaign, they actually all they did was to show how their beautiful and sleek laptop was being slid outside from an envelope. That's it. They just showed a video of a guy removing a laptop from an envelope, right? And they ended the ad saying the world's thinnest notebook. Nothing else, guys. Was it impactful? It was super impactful because people immediately rush to the stores to buy this product. And I think all of us don't need an introduction when it comes to Apple products. So this, in an ecosystem where every single brand was spewing information after information about product features, about the centimeters of the laptop, about the processor speed to consumers, and loading them with data. That's not always required, right? You need to create enough intrigue in the consumer's mind so that they can find out more about the product or the brand rather than pushing them away, right? So that's what simple essentially talks about. The second part of the framework is unexpected, right? When Apple pulled out the MacBook Air from an envelope, from a regular looking brown colored envelope, uh, it wasn't something anyone was expecting, right? It was simple, but it was unexpected. So what they essentially did is they broke the pattern. right? This again is very, very critical. And if you read the book, it talks about something called as opening a curiosity gap, right? Where you get the consumers curious enough so that, again, it's enticing enough for them to find out more information about the brand. So that's unexpected. Then you move to concrete, right? Now, concrete is more about, the example that we just spoke about at the start of my call, which is about Mahindra Logan, right? The earlier ad spoke about a wide body car. What did it do? It was very abstract, right? People didn't really understand or relate to what you meant by a wide body car. So we showed it. We showed it to consumers visually by putting a family, an abnormally large family, and a lot of units of luggage into the boot. So you show versus saying. So for example, the other example also could be, when Samsung first launched the Galaxy, the waterproof Galaxy S5. It didn't just say it's a waterproof phone. You've seen the commercials, they showed these different life situations of people dropping the phone in water. Somebody's washing utensils and the phone falls into water. Why do brands do that? To build a concrete idea in your mind which you can relate to visually. So make it relatable and make it real for the consumer, right? That's concrete. The next is credible. Now, this is where most of the marketers falter. In my experience, I've seen too often marketers use numbers and statistics to sound credible. Guys, that's not what necessarily gives you credibility, right? Now, imagine I'm a detergent brand and I tell you this brand of detergent will give you 60% more whiteness, which is the best in industry, right? Now, great, it's 60%, it's a number, but I don't know what to make out of 60%, right? Compared to an ad which shows, their brand being compared to another competing brand. You would have seen a lot of detergent brand ads do this, right? They've shown one brand and they have these other brand which they've omitted the name and they're trying to show housewives sort of washing it, and the level of whiteness changes. Why do they do that? Because what they're essentially doing is they're giving you what we could say as testable credentials. They're giving their consumers something that they can test by themselves, thereby building credibility. So credibility is not just about stating statistics, stating research, stating numbers. It has to be a lot more interesting than that, right? And we come to the last part, which is emotional stories. Um, I think the one of the best examples and one of my favorite examples is Cadbury Dairy Milk, right? They often use um, these very typical nuanced Indian emotion to build their campaign. But this is an example. This is not just an Indian brand, guys. This is a global brand. Why would they put in so much effort? It's very easy for them to copy paste a global campaign and use it in India. It's saves a lot more money. It's far simpler, but they don't do that. They take a global brand and they Indianize it in terms of the emotional, build an emotional, beautiful emotional story around it, right? So go through every single Cadbury campaign and it talks about how beautifully it enmeshes with some of the Indian nuances, right? So you need to, if you're able to the ad is able to have a strong impact on your consumers, it's going to have a lasting impact, right? There are a lot of insurance companies that you see right now um, who are advertising and playing on fear. They say times are bad, please buy an insurance. Now it's a very fine line that you need to tread very, very carefully, and be super careful in the process. If you tread it properly, you will come out on the winning side. So that's the framework, guys. It's called success. It's something that I tend to use as much as possible whenever we do real life communication strategies, whenever we create ads, whenever we have discussions with our agencies. We tend to try and tick some of these boxes, if not all, when we create a campaign. So I hope that's useful. I think that's a fairly long monologue. I think let's open it up for questions if you guys are okay.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yes,
Couple
sir.
of people have posted in the chat box, and so I'll just repeat them.
Sure.
Uh, do they price products differently offline versus online? Do they provide the same product range? So, how do you calculate the customer lifetime value?
Okay. Sorry. What was the first question, Himanshu? Sorry, I missed that.
So basically, Gautam wants to know about how do you calculate the customer lifetime value, and
Okay.
yeah, even I have a similar doubt. For example, we have learned R in our classes, and we have baskets in that. But how do you calculate the exact values of it? What is model that you actually use? What is the software that you use? Do you actually use R, or is it some other software, or should we
We
start
do
learning it?
we do use the same platform as what you guys are using, and there are a lot of online tools also available today. So now, what you actually learn in the MBA college is honestly just the tip of the iceberg. Because if you look at customer lifetime value, right, the CLTV metric is something which is an ever evolving process. What we learn in college is a slightly simpler version of it. So we use a platform called Solus to sort of calculate the customer lifetime value. We do it with in partnership with an agency called Cartesian, which is a through and through analytics firm. Now, what even I have learned after my MBA is there are tons and tons of different models when it comes to CLTV. And no one company uses a single model, to be very honest, because there are different advantages and disadvantages of each model. But the broad question is obviously you take numbers in terms of whatever business value that the consumer, if I have to oversimplify this, right, whatever business that the consumer brings to you, right, or historically has brought to you, and you slap it with data of how much you've spent to get that customer. So in our case, it's a little bit more straightforward because you have the historical data saying customer X has shopped in the past 3 years versus Y amount, and this is the amount of money we've spent on getting him to the customer. Now, the amount of money could be marketing dollars that you've spent, which is ads, etc. It could be SMS campaigns. It could be a custom audience campaign that you run on Facebook to reach out to him. It could be it could be discounting, for example. So you total all of this cost and you sort of essentially subtract it to arrive at a simple customer lifetime value, which tells you, and you can do it. Typically, most businesses do this on customer segments and not individual customer level. So you're right in saying that you all have been taught to do it at customer segment level, because most often than not, it's important to understand which customer segment is getting you what value. Right. So this is a more simpler version. However, when you come to companies like Netflix and Amazon Prime, which is basically OTT platforms, this is where it starts to get very, very, very complicated. Because look at the typical journey of a consumer, right? Today, I come in because of 1 month of free subscription. Okay, I use 1 month of free subscription and I suddenly sign on for the 1 year membership. After 1 year, I don't want it and I suddenly lose out. Or it could be free subscription, 1 month of sign up, suddenly 3 months of sign up, suddenly dropped out. So the path creations are multiple over here. So over here, a lot of these companies refer to a lot of white papers on customer lifetime values that are put out, and it's sort of an emerging situation right now where they keep changing the way the CLTV calculation is done. Like every year, you will see them using probably a different model because somebody's written a white paper and it's a more efficient way of calculating CLTV. So it's a bit of an ever evolving process. I wouldn't be in a position to tell you there's one size fits all approach over here. But what you'll have studied is very relevant to get a good understanding of where your consumers stand today.
So could you highlight any specific marketing strategy which Celio has used to increase its new to repeat percentage of the customers?
Yeah, actually quite a lot, right? So there are a few things that we've done, right? So whenever you acquire a customer, so typically when you go into some of the new age companies, acquisition is one vertical within the marketing team, right? And retention is another vertical. So this is very important for you all to understand because a lot of new age companies work in this pattern, right? So once you acquire the customer, how does your product life cycle look at, right? So typically in our case, what we see is the most loyal consumers end up repeating every 2 months, right? So you build a customized track for every new customer that comes in. What do I mean by a customized track? I mean, say today Himanshu has come in, he's purchased a product from the Celio store. We will send him maybe a thank you message, thank you for shopping. We'll credit some points into his account, and we'll wait probably for a month to communicate with him again, simply because we know nobody comes back within a month. In a very rare case do people come back before that, right? So the end of 30 days we'll create a communication to say, hey, we'll identify his favorite category, or we'll probably give him a voucher, and we'll say, hey, here's something special for you, do you want to come and shop? And then we see for the next 15-20 days whether he actually turns out to shop. If he doesn't, then we follow it up with another communication, which is a little bit more aggressive. So the idea over here is you make it a combination of brand and offers, right? What you need to identify early on in your customer journey is whether this customer is sensitive to price, or is he more of a brand shopper or a category shopper, right? Does he shop when he gets the right kind of product, or does he shop at the right kind of price point, or does he need both, right? Once we've identified that about a customer, we accordingly create a path. So for example, there are certain customers who probably buy t-shirts, right? And they only buy t-shirts, and they buy a certain category of t-shirts where we say, this customer typically is a low frequency, low loyalty buyer, right? So he's more price sensitive. The elasticity over there is different. So what we do over there is we directly give him an offer. So the minute he comes, we tell him, here's 500 rupees in your account, valid for say 2 months or 3 months at the most. So it gives him a hook to come to the brand because he has something to exchange the brand. It's a limited period offer that we give. So there are a bunch of strategies that we craft basis the kind of consumer that we are talking to. At any given point in time, we have more than 100 campaigns running parallelly on our CRM program, to give you all some sense. So I hope that answers your question.
But sustainability would be certainly an issue in that point, right?
When you say
certain factors like sustainability, how do you?
Okay.
I mean, give the customer an offer.
How do we? No, sorry, I didn't get your question. Can you go again, please? Hello.
You said that you gave the customer an offer that you have a voucher valid for 2 months.
Correct.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, so if you're giving an offer for 2 months, you cannot keep giving such offers to a lot of people for a very long period of time. You will keep on losing money as well, right? So
not really, right?
Sustainability is also a factor that would come.
Not really. See, I mean, offers are never, no offer. I mean, a business has to be stupid to give an offer which they can't afford, right? So for example, today even when we give out points, for example, if we give you 500 points, okay, we know that you're going to shop worth, so if I give you X amounts of points, we know in all likelihood you're going to shop worth 3X for me to be able to recover that. And it's a time bound. The reason it's time bound is if you don't spend it, then neither am I losing anything, neither are you losing out on anything, right? So it's an offer where we've tried to pull you into the consumer. So what we're essentially trying to do over here is we're trying to mimic the pattern of some of our top customers. So for example, we know that once a customer comes into the brand ecosystem for say 3 times in 8 to 10 months, we know he becomes a loyal customer, right? So now as a brand objective, your goal is to get to your shop front or your online website 3 times in that given span of time, right? So that you can bucket him as a loyal customer or a star customer, whatever that internal metric that you have, right? So the idea over here is to constantly, not the idea again is not to bombard him with offers, guys. If we identify that the customer is more a product innovation kind of guy, we'll tell him, hey, we have um, this new range of water repellent denims. So why don't you come check it out without any offer? And in a lot of times, just a simple approach like that works. Let me give you another example. Actually, we do something called as the loyalty rewards campaign, right? 10x, it's called the 10x campaign. Now, say you have 100 points in your account, and for a period of 3 days, we make it 10 times the value. So if you have 100, it suddenly becomes 1,000 rupees. Now, this is just an example that I'm giving, but we've executed this campaign, right? Your intuition is right in saying, when I give out so many points, people are just going to come and pick up products and, take it away for free. We thought exactly the same, but we said, why don't we test this on a smaller base? And we just wanted to see how the campaign performs. We did this campaign. To our surprise, it's the single largest CRM campaign that we've done so far in terms of pure play contribution. When we gave the customer X points, he converted for 4.2x. So that means today, if I've given you 1,000 rupees, right, you've come into my store and you've bought worth at least 4,000 rupees. Now, guys, if you all understand, if you all sort of build a marketing dashboard to evaluate how much you spend on a print ad vis-a-vis how much you spend on an outdoor, vis-a-vis how much you spend on a TV campaign, you will realize that this is the cheapest form of marketing, and it's the best in terms of ROI, right? We've generated 4 times the revenue by burning 1,000 points, which is actually a discount of about 25%, in the range of 20-25%. Retailers on an average give about 35 to 40% discount during sales season, right? So that's how you need to sort of balance things out in terms of efficiency.
So we have the other questioners. So in the recent market, when we have the coronavirus crisis, how do you market products during such a crisis where brands are not having sales? Or do you wait for this crisis to pass?
No, absolutely not. Yeah. Just today morning, we actually tested a campaign which just sent out the history of, we just sent out a message to to all our customers, and we said, let's jog back our memories on the first time we met, and we created this beautiful artwork on what was your first purchase, what did you first purchase, how long have you been with us. So the tricky part right now is you need to say no to transactional content. One thing you have to be really careful about is that consumers are not in the best frame of mind, right? A lot of them are fearing salary losses. A lot of them, there's a lot of challenge. There's a lot of fear and negativity and pessimism around, right? So it's important. So as a brand, do you stop talking to them? Absolutely not. That would be the worst decision ever, because when they come back, you might completely lose touch with your consumer, right? But make it less transactional. The idea is this is actually the best time for marketers to focus on increasing the holy grail of marketing, which is engagement. So if you see, a lot of brands are currently doing things like quizzes, right? I'm not sure how many of you all are using the app called CureFit. It's a workout app. Um, what they've been doing is fantastic, right? Their engagement on the apps have skyrocketed in the past 1 month or so. simply because they have said a lot of people are home. A lot of people are looking to figure out how to work out at home or how to do activities at home, and they've created content pieces after content pieces to help people work out at home without any transaction. So I don't need to necessarily pay today to use their videos, right? So one is, don't hard sell, show some support, understand what are the trends. You need to be as dynamic and nimble as possible. The other thing that you can do is reevaluate, relearn, retarget, right? This is a great time to run a lot of deeper analysis on your consumer, understand them, do calculations like customer lifetime value if you've never done it in your businesses, and become sharper and sharper when the market opens up. To know whom to talk to with what product category or what service. So use this time more intelligently. The last thing is, I would say, tools like social listening have never been more important. Listen to what consumers are saying online. There are various online tools when it comes to social listening. Please leverage these tools to understand, are consumers saying something about your brand? Is the sentiment positive? Is it negative? How can you capitalize on certain trends? So these are some of the things that you need to do in the current situation. And digitize. Be digital enablement is the single biggest thing that's going to make a difference in the coming months and the coming years. If you're not a digitally forward business, then please get ready to get there.
Yeah, yeah, that clears it. Thank you. So Arpit had this question. So, uh, as you have a lot of experience with creating the marketing strategies for the companies, for like CDO and Jack and Jones, so how should a company go about preparing a roadmap? I mean, what are the key metrics, assumptions, estimates, and customer adoptions that are taken into account?
Okay, so slightly broader question. Again, see, depends on industry to industry, but the broad guideline is, see, most often than not, what I've realized is across industries and across brands and across services, the basic thing that brands miss out on is knowing who their customer audience is, right? So first, please have a very clear, pinpointed, sharp definition of who your customer is and the persona. Just having a customer age group is not good enough. You need to understand, okay, tier one customer, 25 years of age, reads heavily into digital consumption, uses website like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, so create a consumer persona. That's the first thing that you need to do, right? The other thing that you need to do in terms of metrics is, if you're a B2C company, understand where you stand when it comes to unaided recall and aided recall. These are very two important and very simple metrics to understand, right? Unaided recall is basically when you ask people, hey, which are the maybe the best automobile brands that you can think of, or the best fashion brands, or the best telephone, the mobile brands, handset brands, etc. Aided recall is obviously you sort of help them in the journey to remembering the brand. Now, in this, if you look at a research that Nielsen had published a few years back, if you look at the men shopping behavior, and I'm specifically talking about men over here, just to give you all an example. Men specifically, when they shop in the retail environment, which is fashion, etc., they always think of 2 to 3 brands at any given point in time. The ecosystem that their top of mind recall is with regards to 2 to 3 brands. So your objective as a brand is, how can I be within that ecosystem of 2 to 3 brands that consumers are thinking of, right? Similarly, so top of mind recall, aided awareness, unaided awareness, what's your lifetime value? The other metrics that you look, which is less on the consumer side but more on the media mix side, is things like, what does your media mix look like? One of the things that when I took on Jack and Jones, I realized that TG was primarily 18 to 25. That was the TG that we were attacking, but the media mix did not represent the TG. So, for example, the media mix was 50% in print ads, which our TG weren't even reading, right? So now that's a typical mistake marketers make. Their media mix and their brand strategy, marketing strategy are not talking to each other. So we realign that to make digital the main medium, right? So ensure that in terms of metrics, your consumer metrics are talking to your media metrics. This becomes another area that you need to focus on. Obviously, metrics like new to repeat, how many customers that what's your acquisition like, how many of them are sort of repeating in what time frame, what's your lapse rate, right? How many customers are leaving the funnel every single year? um, what is your retention rate? How many customers are you managing to retain? Right. So all these metrics are basic metrics, but are relevant for almost every single business.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Panchan had this question. So last year, Celio opened its 50th offline store in Patna. Do you think that in the times where megamarts are extensively taking over, the individual retail shops would have it easy? That too in tier 2 and tier 3 cities.
See, to be honest, when you look at the Indian retail scenario, if you look at profitability as a metric, right, it's the tier 2, tier 3 cities which are actually doing phenomenally well. Now, this question essentially boils down to how strong a brand are you are. When you say mega marts, maybe these are probably national chain stores of types where multiple brands are there within the same roof. Uh, Both have a lot of relevance in today's generation because there are consumers who are looking for experiences, right? There are consumers who are looking for experiences. They have certain attachments to certain brands. So if you're a strong brand today, right, say like for example like a Levi's, right? Now if you look at Levi's business strategy, about 40% of their business, 40 to 50% of their business comes from standalone stores. When I say standalone stores, these are stores owned, operated either by them or their franchisees, and not the multi-format stores that you're referring to, right? This is happening because they've built a very solid brand. So in marketing, you all would have learned concepts of push marketing and pull marketing, right? So brands which are strong are able to succeed well when it comes to pull marketing. Brands which are not so strong are probably able to do well in the push marketing phase. So when you enter a national chain stores where footfalls is immense, you can, if a brand has a good product, it will sell well. However, these decisions are not just made on marketing fundamentals. They're also a business call that gets taken. So, for example, let me give you some context. When you enter mega marts, you have to share some part of your margins with them, right? Maybe you'll give them 20%, 30. If your margin today at a product level is say 40%, you will be probably giving 15, 20% margin to the mega mart. So your appetite or your ability to make profit shrinks, right? Yes, the risk is lower, but the amount of profits that you can make as a brand reduces, which is why it's important to have your own stores. Because if you do well, the amount of profit, because all the costs are your own levers, your own costs, and you can control it better, you might stand to make a lot more money. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that makes sense. Uh, so when customers purchase from you, so how do you demarcate? How do you differentiate about how they actually made the purchase? So was it because of the print media? Was it because of the codings that you put up, or was it because of the digital advertisements that you pushed forward? So how do you
So the
quantify
so
which
the
one was better?
attribution. How do you attribute that to which medium, right? This has been the historical biggest pain point in every marketer's life, right? How do you attribute sales? Which is why with online it is far easier to attribute because of the kind of analytical models that it gives you. Offline is obviously a bit difficult. Um, See, there is no 100% solution over here, but there are ways to sort of navigate this, right? one method is that some brands can afford to, sometimes what we do is we put a unique coupon code in every medium that we advertise. Sometimes we don't do it all the times, but a print will have a different coupon code. Outdoor might have a different coupon code. A digital might have a different coupon code. So when customers come in and use those unique coupon codes, you're able to track saying, okay, I know this customer came from this particular medium and this particular came from this particular. Now, this can be done in case of call to action campaigns. The other way of doing this is something called as the NPS survey, which I'm guessing you'll again would have studied, called the Net Promoter Score. So along with the Net Promoter Score, when the consumers bill their products, we always try to ask them a few questions saying, where did you hear about the brand? Again, not the most accurate of ways to do it, but it gives you a certain sense. The third way of doing it is to isolate your media mix, right? So at any given point in time, you only do an aggressive print ad, see how it's impacted your sales in the offline and the online media, follow it up with maybe an outdoor campaign, follow it up with a digital campaign. Very rarely used because it's not a very efficient method, but these are different methods that marketers use to try and attribute sales to different mediums. But if you go on to see, marketing is not just about sales, right? Marketing is also about building brand recall, brand engagement. So there's a lot of exit research that brands and companies do after they release a campaign. So even today, television is the single largest and the best ROI medium when it comes to if you want to reach out to the masses, right? Now assume uh, a brand like Cello is present in close to 150 cities across India, right? Now, about a year back, print started to become very expensive for us, because imagine if we have to put out a print ad in 150 cities, it's going to be far, far, far more expensive than what a television ad will cost. So your cost per reach to the consumer, it becomes a very important medium in your choice of media as well, right? So that is a little bit on the media part. But to answer your question about attribution, if you don't have a very, very concrete answer today, there are different methods that different marketers use and different companies use. It's about 70-80% accurate, I would say, but it's still an evolving method.
So on the topic of brand loyalty, so how can marketers go about creating the brand loyalty in the consumer's mind amidst all the discount-based models that are currently prevalent in the market?
$1 million question, right? All of us are asking ourselves the same, because loyalty is becoming a fleeting concept, to be very honest. I mean, there are more and more brands that are coming, and India is a very, very difficult country to sort of get loyalty in, right? Because we are we are still we are still a very price sensitive country. So for
But
us,
some
things,
brands have managed to do that.
obviously there are a lot of brands, not some brands. There are a lot of brands that have managed it. See, I think there has to be, in terms of the brand ecosystem or ethos, or actually, would you want me to talk about a particular brand? Do you have a brand in mind?
So I'll just take my example. I have a loyalty towards, say, Levi's. I prefer the jeans that Levi's
Correct,
produces. I have a personal preference for them.
correct. So, can I ask you a question? What's your preference there? Why do you love Levi's? Have you ever thought
I
about
guess
it?
it was one of the first ones that I actually had, so might have been that. Not really in that in depth.
Exactly. So I'll tell you a few reasons that could possibly be see, the minute I asked you why do you love Levi's so much, there was no quantifiable answer for that, right? Um, it That's the beauty of some of the biggest brands in the world and the most successful brands in the world, right? Levi's stands out, and this is the same answer that we get across consumer research, right? When we do, they're not really sure why they're doing it's if you look at pure data of top of mind recall of a brand, right? In the apparel space, if you look at one brand which will always be in the top 5 for most consumers, Levi's will always be there. Now, if you sort of relook at the media money and the amount of money Levi's has spent in the marketing domain, it will beat almost every single apparel brand in the country when it comes to their investments in marketing, in branding, in marketing, right? And that's paid off, right? They are one of the few brands in the apparel industry who are very, very regular when it comes to TV ads. You don't see a lot of apparel brands doing a lot of TV ads. There are very, very few compared to FMCG and tech and other industries. They are one of the brands which stands out. The other thing is denim as a category, right? What Levi's beautifully did as a strategy is denim as a category is a high involvement category, right? Once you buy a pair of denim from a particular brand and you like the fit and you like the material, very difficult for you to change loyalties. Okay, and this comes across in our data as well. If we ever acquire a customer from a denim purchase, if his first purchase of the product is denim, then he sticks with the brand for at least 3 to 4 years. That's the typical life cycle, which is very, very good over here. So the idea is there a formula? Obviously, that you as a brand you need to be really, really strong, or you need to be in a product service space where you are unique, right? There is no other. See what's happening with Ola and Uber today, right? Most of us have both the apps on the phone. There are a few of us who are truly loyal to it, but most of us are constantly checking both the apps to see which one is offering a better rate, and 80% of the consumers operate this way, right? So certain categories building loyalty is very, very hard. Certain categories building, once you've got that initial loyalty, then it's very easy to sort of maintain it. So loyalty to me at the end of the day is primarily two spaces. Either you build a solid brand that people relate to and people can think about it. It's very closely related to top of mind recall or an experience that you give. The second way to do it is to create a service or a product which is unique, right? Where you don't get any similar product, right? So today, even why does Amazon succeed in most markets compared to competition, right? One of the values, if you go on uh, Amazon's website, one of the value they say is customer obsession, right? And guys, they take customer obsession very, very seriously. If you interview with Amazon today, they will ask you, they will always tell you, please give us an example of customer obsession, right? If you make a complaint to Amazon, they're usually 9 out of 10 times the company which resolves customer complaints the fastest. Their NPS scores are one of the best in the industries. So loyalty is not just one thing. Loyalty is many things when it comes to consumer facing. And you need to, as a company, you need to build on it, and it happens over a period of years. Levi's has been in the country for donkey years, and what they've done in the retail space is phenomenal.
True. So Rupal has this question. So which marketing initiatives, promotions, and customer segments are the most profitable ones, considering all the costs, including returns as well?
Uh, See again, difficult to sort of generalize this, but with respect to the fashion industry or the retail industry, when you say customer segments, see the customers who are, this is a very straightforward answer, right? The customers who are going to be the most loyal to you are going to be always be the most profitable, because these customers will be buying more, will usually be less price sensitive and will be more brand loyal, more product driven, more fashion driven, maybe, or more innovation driven. So they are going to be, their willingness to pay is going to be much, much higher compared to a company or a product sorry, a customer segment which is very, very price sensitive. So customer segments is usually a straightforward answer. So in our case, we've just been doing some analysis. What we saw is people between the age group of 24 to 27 are most likely to buy full priced products in our case, right? And these are people who've been with us for at least a year, right? So they have been loyal. They are not maybe star customers, but they've been loyal and they've been with the company for a while. And fashion as a metric to them is very important. They want to be known for the sense of fashion. They don't see fashion as a category which is just something that you need, but it's something they see it as a discretionary spend and they want to spend on it. It's important. They perceive it as a part of their identity. So these are the customers who are most profitable for us. In terms of marketing initiatives, which are the most profitable, if I have to purely draw an ROI metric, then by far CRM is always the most profitable because you spend tons and tons of money acquiring customers in today's generation, right? And you are spending it across different mediums, right? So there's always leakages, and one print ad across 10, 12 cities costs you anywhere around 50 lakhs. Now the same 50 lakhs can be a lot of money when it comes to a CRM program. So we've seen point of sale branding, we've seen the CRM program give us some of the best results when it comes to marketing ROI. And we continue, and digital obviously is a very close second on that list, purely because you're able to track it. Marketing ROI also depends on your relative ecosystem. There's a point that you brought out, that should brands be advertising right now. Let me give you an example. In the past 3 days, we just did a performance marketing campaign just as a test. We just spent about 10,000 rupees on it to see what kind of return on investment we've got has blown all our minds away, simply because nobody else is advertising currently, and the inventories that are available are huge and at a very cheap price. It's an evolving process.
Okay. In an typical advertisement, for a typical line that you launch, you create advertisements that are expensive, and then you have to showcase those advertisements. So that as well costs money. But currently, we are seeing the fast fashion companies like Zara, who have the shelf life of typical of 1 month. They change out the lines every month. So how do you go about marketing such products, and how do you compete against them?
So actually, if you look at the Zara business model, right, it's completely different. They don't believe in marketing. They're one of the few brands who don't believe in the traditional concept of marketing, and they're probably one of the few brands who can afford to not believe in it. Now, the entire Zara model, if you see, is built on their supply chain, right? They create an effect. They create sort of a desperation effect in the consumer's mind, right? So if you see a product, if you enter a Zara store today, right? If you see a product that you like and you decide to sort of say, hey, I'm going to come back and buy it to the store, you won't find it again, right? So what they are essentially doing is, their form of marketing is a bit different. Zara stores are always beautifully laid out. They're always, if you notice, in India as a strategy, very consciously they try to position their brands next to a lot of premium and bridge to luxury brands. So their store fronts, I'm not sure how many of you all have managed to see the Bombay Zara store, but it's a ridiculously beautiful store that they've managed to create. And it's costed more money than most companies' 3-year marketing plan to put up that store, right? And that's the kind of marketing that they do. They create huge facades, they create huge stores which are larger than life. And those stores itself act as a branding front for them. That's one thing that they do. The second is they do a lot of PR around their collection. So they are whether you like it or not, today they are the fastest when it comes to getting a product from the fashion runway within their stores, and not all of them are their own designs, guys. A lot of them is copied. I'm not sure if I should be telling on this, but there are cases that have happened with Zara where they've seen a product on the runway and they've managed to launch that product before the designer of that brand has launched them in their stores. So Zara has exceptional supply chain capabilities that they've built over the years, and consumers love fashion. Consumers love fast fashion, so they keep thronging to the store again and again and again in the fear of missing out those products.
So how do you compete against such fast fashion? So how do you market your product in such a situation when fast
See,
fashion is so prevalent?
See, the thing is, you don't necessarily always need to compete it, right? There are consumers who are looking for fashion, but fast fashion. But if you look at Zara, it's not necessarily the best when it comes to quality. This is more of, in fact, Zara and all is going to be in a very tricky place in the next decade or so, because sustainability as a metric in the fashion world is going to become very, very big. It's going to be a huge talking point. I'm not sure how many of you all know, but the fashion industry is one of the biggest polluters in the world, guys. And the way that we are going about is actually not very sustainable, right? So a lot of players today are talking about sustainability, about building clothes which are far more durable, right? So a lot of companies are actually using the countermeasure. So for example, for a company like Celio or a lot of other companies that I know, sustainability has always been a very, very critical metric. They will not, no matter what you do, they will not go down on the quality of the product. And they'll clearly tell you, our business, we are not in the business of fast fashion. We never want to be in the business of fast fashion. We want to be a strong, solid brand, and we want to be known for the quality of our product while also trying and providing the most trendy and fashionable products. So as a company, you need to define the space that you're going to be in. Zara is not, Zara is a relatively new brand. It came up in the 1980s, and it's exploded, right? Because they leveraged on fast fashion, right? And companies like Zara also said that they'll never go online, but now they're forced to, right? So markets are changing, demands are changing. If they adapt to it, they will succeed. If they don't, they won't succeed. So as a marketer and as a brand, I think what you need to remember is you can't be everything to everyone. You need to know what you stand for, right? And if you're clear about what you stand for, that's great. There is I'm not sure if how many of y'all would have seen this, but there's a talk by Simon Sinek on TED
Yeah.
Talks, which is about how great leaders think. And I personally love that talk because he touches this very topic. You can't be everything to everyone. So define who you are, define your niche, and then market it accordingly.
Yeah. Thank you. So this is one question. So one student actually did a report on changing customer experiences, specifically on retail stores, and he found that respondents wanted more convenience. So what is Celio doing to improve convenience? And do you think
Correct.
improving convenience will help retail stores sales compared to online sales in the future?
Excellent question, actually. Very relevant. I mean, there are different ways of defining convenience, right? But today, customers want, a lot of y'all are hearing something called as omni-channel retail. It's a buzzword which has been going around for years, and people don't necessarily understand what omni-channel retail is. So quickly, omni-channel essentially means you sort of establish a system within your stores where, if say a product or a customer walks in, he likes a particular t-shirt, product, whatever service that you're offering, and for some reason he's not able to purchase it because the color is not available or the size is not available, or he wants something more, right? Now retail may, the biggest challenge is you have limited space available, you can stock limited, you can show limited number of products, a various challenge, right? Now a simple system of putting, say, a beautiful screen in the store and telling the customers, so no problem, please try out, please tell me which colors and sizes you want, I will get it delivered to your house, right? And you complete the transaction. So that's a form of convenience, right? It's very easy. It sounds great in theory, but it's very difficult to implement it at the store level, which is Not too many companies have been able to do it well, but there's been a lot of progress in the last 2 years on this front. So we've been working on this technology for the past over a year now. We finally went live with it last year. Within no time, it's already 7% of our company revenues, right? So that means people are entering stores. They are either not liking something or they want something more, and they're booking it through a tab or a screen within the store environment, right? COD, which is cash on delivery, is a form of customer pleasement. There are, you as a retailer and as a brand, you can go on and on and on and on. And we are actually one of the first players to start omni-channel retail within the national chain store format, within the multi-retail store format. So even if you walk into a Shopper Stop, for example, today, and if you were to shop at Cello, and if you want a wider range of products which we might have at our store but not over there, you can actually book it from the tab, and we'll get it arranged for you. So digital enablement goes a long way in sort of making consumers' life easy. We are currently working on a technology where we are trying to evaluate if we can create a virtual 3D store. Now, you know how you have Google Maps where you sort of go to a place and you walk around the place. In a post-COVID scenario, we are assuming that a lot of people won't come to the stores. So we're actually identifying if we can create a 3D store where people can actually get the feel of, walking within the store and actually selecting the products. And this can be replicated on a VR headset also. So a lot of work is being done to make things exciting and digital friendly and convenient for the customer.
So the last two questions in view of time. So
Sure.
how do you ensure that a customer leaves behind a review or a rating on the product and ensure that you are able to leverage their social networks to onboard more customers?
Sorry, can you just go through the question again? Hours?
I mean, it's usually quite difficult to get the customers to write down a review about what they found nice or what they did not.
Yeah.
So how do you get them to give a review about it? How do you get them to give a rating to what they got? And how do you leverage that to say if they give their Facebook IDs or if they give their email addresses to leverage that to onboard more customers or to have a retention program?
Okay, so this is a very detailed question. So there are multiple ways of doing this, right? One is you need to simplify this for the customer, right? Today you see a lot of brands not necessarily asking you for hordes and hordes of feedback. All they give you is 5 smiley faces and you have to select one, right? And usually what happens is, and what industry knowledge and experience says is, if people are unhappy with the product, right, or if they're exceptionally happy with the product, these are two ends of the spectrum, right, they will leave some concrete feedback by themselves. So as a company or a brand, you need to do two things. One is you need to make it very easy for the consumers to give you feedback and not make it a multi-step, multi-pronged approach, right? Simplify it so the whole NPS methodology works great. And also keep an option if the customer wants to give you more qualitative or quantitative feedback, right? Now, what we've seen over our journey is you cannot force the customer to give you feedback. He'll do it if he wants to, but there are different ways of nudging him, right? So when he's doing billing, when he's spending some time, you can sort of nudge him to give a feedback. If he still does not do it, you immediately after he leaves the store, you sort of send him an SMS or a WhatsApp message. A lot of people, if you see today, are using the concept of WhatsApp bills. You started getting bills on WhatsApp, and they put this star rating below. A few companies have started doing it. It's very easy to do it. Or you get an email saying, "Thank you for your experience. Please give a star rating over here." Amazon does it beautifully, right? So they keep nudging the customer 3 to 4 to 5. Make My Trip does this beautifully. They'll keep sending you emailers for a month after you've stayed at a hotel of taken a flight or something, and you're like, please give us rating, please give us a rating, please give us your feedback. So the best way to do it is creating a multi-touch point nudging approach. The other way is simplify the process for the consumers, make it as easy and efficient as you can. And this works in most cases. The last approach is incentivizing customers. So you tell the customer, give us comprehensive feedback, and we'll maybe put 200 rupees into your account or something of that sort. So you incentivize the customer to give you feedback. These are three solid ways of doing it.
Right. So last question. So do you have any advice for us as future marketers? What we should take care of? We should be careful of in the beginning years.
I think, guys, this advice is not just for now, but it's more of a general marketing advice. I think always, if y'all are in a B2B role or a B2C role, whoever your customer is and whoever your consumer is, always keep him at the center of your decision making and as strategy creation, right? Too often as marketers, especially when you become senior and you climb the chain of hierarchy, and this happens to me also. I'm not devoid of this. We tend to make assumptions about what the customer thinks sitting in our office, or we tend to make assumptions about um, you know in the past I've seen the customer behaving in an X manner, so he's going to continue behaving in the same manner. This is the biggest pitfall that marketers go through, and they end up faltering or not succeeding with their strategy. So please, at any given point in time, seek validation from the customer. The floor, the customer interaction is going to be your best friend if you're serious about a career in marketing. The second is learning never stops. As I said, customer lifetime value, metrics about calculation, creating models, learning statistical models to sort of predict demand, etc. You're learning a lot right now in the 2 years of your MBA. A lot of it will be relevant, multiple years down the line, and you will be like, shit, I should have paid more attention in class. I go through that feeling all the time. And then I have to, jog my memory by going through all those theories and courses. So please continue learning. There's marketing is constantly evolving. There's a lot of great resources out there in terms of online marketing. There's a new concept of hyperlocal marketing, which all you guys should read about and study, because it's going to be the next big thing, and there are a lot of technology involved in doing hyperlocal marketing. So I think these are the two things that I'd probably leave with you: consumer, because consumer and customer obsessed, if they're different in your case. And please do not stop learning. Be open to learning, be open to listening to my marketing ideas from your sales staff, from an executive, from people. Everybody is going to have an opinion about how you should market your product, right? Don't get irritated. You will be inundated with opinions. Take them, absorb them all in, create the best version of them, and that's a successful marketing strategy. So that's about it.
All right. Thank you, sir, for taking time out and having a chat with us. I'm sure all of us have expanded our horizons and got to know a lot more. So I'll just like to sum up a couple of points that we focused on. So
Sure.
focus on very specific ideas. We should not focus on a lot of the values that we have in our product. Just focus on very particular and very small set of important uh, I, factors for your product. Then
Correct.
reinforce the idea again and again and again. Get it into the head of the consumer and make sure that different markets have different requirements. For example, if you're marketing for India, it will have a different requirement. For a European market, you'll have a different requirement. And define the customer lifetime value. So I guess that would be a it from my end. And again, a lot of thank you. Thank you again,
Good.
sir.
Guys, all the best. I know it might be a slightly difficult period, so please hold your ground, continue learning, and I'm sure the economy and the jobs are going to bounce right back. Stay positive. That's all I would say.
Thank you.
Good. Have a good day, guys. Bye.
Same.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.